And everything's covered in ash. We take it as auspicious. We like ash covered things.
See if the smoke chases you again, as usual.
He loves Atmaram. Duni Mata. That's me. Post appropriate Facebook announcements for those who are watching. Post. You remember what happened?
I'm trying.
Let me see if I remember what happened.
Sorry. Okay, you can start.
Yes, it's like you have to take it back.
What's that?
New load of
Did you
Oh,
see?
I closed the back.
Oh, thank you. Forgot to do that. Please repeat. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Om Mangalam Gurudevaya Devye Matriksha Mangalam Mangalam Bhakta Brindebhyo Sarva Lokaya Mangalam Om Stapakaya Chadharmasya Sarva Dharma Swarupine Avatara Varishtaya Ramakrishnaya Mangalam Om Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Devo Maheshwara Guru Reva Param Brahman Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha Om Sarashiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Ashmar Achara Prayantam Vande Gurum Paramparam Om Dattatreya Hare Krishna Unmata Anandadayaka Digambar Mune Bala Kasya Jnana Sagara Om Sri Ganesha Sharada Gurubhyo Namaha Jayama.
The green light on?
I think so. Yes. So 2 weeks ago we last read the killing of several demons by Lord Krishna. We're in the childhood Leelas of Lord Krishna. Over the months and the last year or so, Putna has been killed. The cart demon's been killed. The whirlwind demon, Tanivarta, the whirlwind demon, was killed. The Arjuna trees were knocked down and freed. The calf, and then last week the calf demon, who was impersonating a calf, right, and Bakasura, the crane demon, and Angasura, which is the main one, the snake, which we swallowed Krishna and everything. We gave some interesting interpretation of the waking of Kundalini and the plugging. It was very interesting. But I forgot. As soon as I finished, I forgot, and I told several people to remind me. And Mother, who's not here, this morning or yesterday. She said, "I'm not going to be here, but you told me to remind you about something." But I forgot what it was. But no, she forgot what it was. It was something about some demon. I remembered. It's I forgot to mention. We told the story of this is Bakasura. Bakasura is the crane who attacked, and Krishna ripped the story. And we forgot, as we were mentioning in the story, we told many things, but we forgot to mention we were giving, also sharing the traditional symbolic or metaphorical meaning of the different demons. And quoting a very famous collection from Bhaktivinoda Thakur, the Vaishnava Acharya Bengal, he gave an interpretation that the different demons that Krishna kills can be interpreted. I mean, they're not just fish or something like that. They're hunting when they're doing like that, but they look like they're symbols of meditation, of concentration, right? But so they're given one of the interpretation giving is that of a deceitfulness, right? Of a fake yogi, right? This is one of the things, because that's something we have to. You can see what is it? It's a little bit, perhaps a little bit simplistic to say, we had the sign of a yogi standing on one leg and tree, like that's a sign of a yogi. Look at what a very powerful yogi can stand on one leg, right? But what is his mind on? Right. So similarly, there's so much. He's stand on one leg like a great yogi, looks very beautiful. Many yogis in the modern world look very nice. Right. Right. That's one of the attracting powers of the modern. Very good looking, standing on one leg, right, and looking like such good meditation. But what are they meditating upon? Right. They're usually looking to kill something to eat. Right. The whole thing is is for money, for food, for prestige, like that. So I forgot to mention one of the interpretations of the crane is that of the imposter or fake, pretentious, showy, something we can get the signs. Like nice BB, that projection of a dunda like that. Oh, see, a big yogi, right? But it's not. But what am I thinking about? Why am I doing? Right, that type of thing. So this is the thing we have to overcome. These are the anartha that has to be ripped apart. As beautiful as it looks, it has to be ripped apart by Krishna, or it is ripped apart by Krishna as he progresses. So then the snake demon. So at the end of the snake demon story, let me get my pages a little out of order. 57. Yes. Sorry, 1 second. I didn't actually number these. The order of the demons. So Krishna the snake swallowed Krishna, and Krishna ripped apart the snake. And immediately the boys, what would happen? On all the other occasions, the cowherd boys ran home and told their parents. Something incredible happened. Like when the bird happened, there was this giant bird, and he attacked Krishna. And Krishna ripped apart. It was like amazing, right? They're all at a big adventure, and they're like, wow, thank God, by Vishnu's grace, Krishna was saved. They were thinking, right? By Krishna's grace, you can throw a little bit in the fire if you want to feed the Nimata. But it's mentioned at the end of this chapter, at the end of the last chapter, that you have to. Everybody in the whole world will look at the back of your head.
Better look good.
This is why I have, just in case. Because my back of my head is not looking as good as it was 20 years ago. It's changing considerably. So I'll back up just a few sentences. So he mentioned that when when the kids, after 1 year, they told their parents what had happened. So that was an interesting thing. Why after 1 year? Usually, imagine something happens, you immediately tell your parents. So this is the baiting of somebody says, well, after 1 year they told their parents. And that was the end of the story. This is also a suspicious and destroying story. Those who recite it attain the good in this world and the next, right? Typical type of statements are made. So King Parikshit, who's listening to the story from Sukadev, Parikshit, who's really a gift from Krishna in the line of the Pandavas, hearing all the accounts of him who is his protector, questioned Sukha again, the same theme, his mind fully controlled. The king said, "O learned sir, how can something that was done in a distant past become a current incident?" From a year ago, they went home and told their parents just what happened, but a year ago, right? So that doesn't make sense, right? How can an event that has been done in a distant past become a current incident? How can an event that took place in the 5th year of Krishna be reported by the boys, his companions, only 1 year later? That is in Krishna's 6th year. O great yogin and teacher, this seems to me to be so puzzling. Tell me all about it. It must surely be due to the Lord's Maya, his mysterious spiritual potency, and to nothing else. Though I am only an ordinary Kshatriya, of course we know he's not an ordinary Kshatriya. He's a very great, he even says he's a gift of Krishna to their line. Though I am an ordinary Kshatriya, I am the most fortunate person in the world, for I am able to hear again and again from no less a personage than your holy self, the sanctifying account of Krishna's deeds. Sutta says, Sutta continued. Sutta is the big teller, not Shukadev, but Sutta, the reciter. On being questioned in this way, Shuka, the son of Vyasa, saw the Supreme Being, whereupon all his sense powers got merged in him in Samadhi. To answer this question, he immediately went into Samadhi, thinking of this question. Right? So this is a very deep thing. So we have to say, this is a very beautiful story. It's a famous story. You've heard the story. We'll tell the story. It's told very simply. Right? But it's the fact that this seems to be an interesting question, and the guru, thinking about it, goes into Samadhi. So that means it has to be a very big topic. Right? And it's given good space. Right? O best among devotees, with great effort he then brought his mind to the consciousness of the external world and began to speak. Right? In order to answer the question, it took great effort to bring his mind back down to the relative plane, giving a hint. His mind was in Samadhi. And actually, Shukadev, he is not an ordinary person. He was born, we understand he was born already Paramahansa Nabhut. Right? He stayed, and the story goes, in the Bible, there's different Puranas to the story a little differently. In the Bhagavatam, it's still very, I like it, that he's born, he seeing this world, he's like, this world's full of Maya, I don't want to be in this world. So he stayed in his mother's womb 16 years. Right? Right, and we all know sometimes our kids stay attached to their mother's womb many years. It's hard to cut the umbilical cord. Right? But finally, when he came out, there was an auspicious. So the Lord withdrew his Maya just for a second, so that he'd be born. But then immediately he sees he has no attachment. He doesn't want to get attached to his parents and to his family like that. So 16-year-old boy, completely, he just walked out. He left home. The second he was born, he renounced the world and left the world. Right. So this is not an ordinary person. In Devi Bhagavatam, the story is told, and in the Bhagavat Mahimna, which is the glory of the Bhagavatam, it's also fleshed out. And I think in the Bhagavatam also, but I'm not remembering. I can't tell you the verse or chapter, but I think it's there. Swami Omananda, our Sannyas Guruji, he tells us a lot. He says when Vyasa, he heard how to give this highest message of bhakti to the world. He says, I'll write a special text to describe it, but who will believe it? Right? So I have to give it. Who can I teach it to that could give it to the world? Right? He says, my son, he's a Paramahansa. He could learn. Right? He could teach it. But people will think I'm impartial. I'm teaching it to my son. Right? Rather than to a qualified person. So he has to go to a guru. And so he sent them to King Janak. Right? He says, King Janak, and then he'll accept him. Because if King Janaka accepts him as a disciple and teaches him the Bhagavatam, right, then he'll be qualified to teach it, right? And there's a very nice story that actually Janak asks, "You please give me my dakshina before teaching." He says that's not normally after teaching at the end of a studentship, one gives dakshin to the guru, right? He says no, the knowledge I'm giving you is very high. Right, and the effect will be you'll see no difference between us, right? And therefore you won't think of guru and disciple. So pay me now. Like very nice, right? But also shows that this is it's the devotional text. The highest goal of life is bhakti, but within that bhakti is very sublime descriptions and experiences of a type of non-duality that is hard to read. Not just philosophical, it's so profound that this is the effect. And so it's called, at the end of every chapter, it says in the Paramahansa Samhita. This is a text for Paramahansas, right? So it's spoken by a Paramahansa, and it's spoken to a Paramahansa, ultimately, who becomes Paramahansa, right? And so we have to be Paramahansa to understand it. Or we'll be made Paramahansas if we understand it, however we understand it. So then his answer. So actually, this section is the section I want to read is chapter 13 of the 10th skanda, that deals with this whole lila, and it's mostly narrative. So I'm not good. I didn't spend the whole week translating it. I only translated I think 3 verses. The first 2 verses and the verse towards the end that I think are very significant, because you have to think from this question seems to be very profound. Right, like not just a curiosity, like why did it take a year for them to tell the story? And then the Guru goes into Samadhi thinking about it. So it must be something deep. So the Guru gives a very nice answer to begin with. He appreciates the questions. It says, Shuko Vacha. Sadhu Prishtam Mahabhaga. Prishtam means question. Sadhu, you have asked a sadhu question. Right, sadhu means excellent. It means good, pure, excellent, but also means sadhu. This is a question. This differentiates him. Although he's saying, I'm just a kshatriya, I'm just a fallen king. I got cursed to be bit by a snake in a few days. You know, like we know the story, right? But he says, but this question is it's a spiritual question, right? And the thing is, most questions are not spiritual questions. Even questions that we ask our gurus and sadhus and saints, and we go to the scriptures, we pray to Ma for everything except sometimes the high spiritual knowledge, right? He says, and he says, Mahabhaga, you are very fortunate. Why? Because you've asked a spiritual question, right? That means this type of questions bring fortune, right? If you ask this type of question, you get this type of knowledge. But also means you have to be fortunate to ask such a question. Otherwise, this desire wouldn't come to ask this question. But also, he says actually, Twaya Bhagavata Uttama. You, who are you that's fortunate to ask this question? You are Uttama Bhagavat. Bhagavata Uttama. Bhagavata here means topmost devotee. Bhagavata. Bhagavata means scripture, Bhagavata means person. You are a Bhagavat, right? A pure devotee of God. Uttama, you are the highest, you're in the highest category of devotee. Right? Therefore, your question, this is an esoteric question, right? Secret question. You are very fortunate. You've asked a very good question, and you're qualified to ask this question, right? Because also we can ask questions we're not qualified to ask, right? And I just remember the other day we were reading Adikesha, a new translation or a translation of the what is it, Tripura Rahasya. We know that Tripura Rahasyam, we have the Jnanakanda is the section that the Brahmana Ashram has published, and we've read it. Many people, it's a wonderful book. But the first part has never been, which is the mythological stories of the Devi and the conversation between Dattatreya and Parshuram to his disciple, and like that part's only recently been published, right, or printed. And so he sent me a link. We got it, and it's super wonderful, right? Very wonderful book. Jnanakanda, the philosophical part, and then the last section, which deals with the worship of Sri Anta, has been lost to history. But we're very happy. A new. But there's one. So Parshuram is asking a very good question. Dattatreya mentioned something. Oh, you mentioned something like that. What's that? Can you render? He said, no, I can't tell you. And you're not ready for that answer, right? It's like the story. It's just like that weaver. Well, weaver, right? Well, let me listen to the story. That story you're all qualified to. I'll tell you the story of the weaver. I still haven't got to his eventual answer. He said the story, there was a weaver, a very pious man doing and very expert, and he got the attention of the king, who is a very religious man, and that the weaver is not a very high caste, but is a very noble artistic profession, right? And he had great faith, and the king was doing lots of yagyas and had so many Brahmins working for him. He was feeding rishis and sages, and the Brahmins chanting, getting good advice, right? And his king and this weaver, because of his service to the king, was making these mats and things like that, and clothes for the rituals. So he was making some spiritual advancement. He was very happy, right? Learning from the Brahmins, learning from the respect for the king and the Brahmin. And so he took, it's like, oh, Swamiji. And he's one young Brahmin who had some good knowledge. You please tell me, what's the real goal of life? What will really happen? when we attain, how we attain enlightenment, how we know it like that. This is all because you're sincere. I'll tell you, right? He said, well, first thing, you'll see no difference between pure and impure. You'll see no difference between sin and vice. You'll see no difference between a Brahmin and a Sudra, right? This is the truth. At that highest state, there's no difference. You go beyond these differences. But hearing this, he began to, now he doesn't see the difference between Brahmins, so he stopped respecting the Brahmins. He stopped going to the pujas. He think pure food and impure food. He stopped thinking, well, what's the difference between my wife and a prostitute? Everybody's the same. Slowly, because he wasn't ready for that information, he fell away. So Dattatreya says, like that, I'm not telling you that answer. Later, ask me again, I'll give you that answer. So here it's saying that you've asked a spiritual question, and I'll answer you because you are Uttama, Bhagavata Uttama. You have a highest qualification, right? Now, whether or not we have that highest qualification to hear the answer, we shall be a little humble as we read his answer and discuss his answer. We'll understand it to the best of our ability. We'll try not to misunderstand it, to make a travesty. It's been made a travesty of, even by us. We have to be careful how we interpret these verses, right? Because we're lucky, but it's been told what an Uttama, Bhagavat Uttama has said, has asked, and we've been told we have a good fortune to read. Yat, I wrote these real small, really small font. Nutanyasi Ishaya. Nutanyasi. Nutanayasi. Nayas. It means like this Ishara, the stories, you see later in the next line it says Kata, the stories of Ishvara, of God, right? They're always new. Right? You're always asking, because you're a high devotee, you're always asking about God. Right? This is what you're always talking about God. Always asking about God. Shirnam api katham muhu. These stories, these katham, in spite, you've heard them again and again. We've heard these stories again and again. Even maybe you've heard the story of Brahma, what Brahma is about the naughtiness of Brahma is going to do. We've all heard the story. He says, but satam, a devotee, I am Sara Britam. Who are these Paramahansas? I'm sorry, I'm skipping verses. Shinnam apikatamuha. The topics of God to a devotee, it's not a good it's not a, meditate on the words, not the sentence. A devotee who's a topmost devotee wants to hear again and again. These things never get tiring, and they're always fresh. They're always, in spite of being heard and again, we want to hear again and again, right? Because they're ever new, right? And we feel they're ever new, even though we've heard them again and again. You see, in mundane stories, right? We hear it's like, oh, I heard that story, right? We're not interested again, right? Because it's maybe a few times we hear a story, but it's like a family member that tells you the story again. It's like. It's like, okay, like we're being polite, not interested, right? Because mundane topics are not that interesting, right? But to somebody who's spiritually interested, who have the spiritual aspiration, these stories are ever fresh. It says, Satam ayam sara britam nisaroho. Give a little. Sarabritam, those topmost Paramahansa type of Sarabritam, those who've gotten the very essence of everything. The Paramahansa is somebody who's taken the essence, right? In the story of the Paramahansa, between milk and water, they take just the milk, right? So the Paramahansa here called Sarabritam, one who takes the very essence of everything, the Paramahansa, Satam, that devotee, he has a feature. What's his symptom? So we have to know whether we have those developing. We maybe not have developing that symptom, right? Yad artha vani shruti chetasam api. Artha yani, the aim of life. When you purushartha, the aims of life. The aim of life to a devotee. What's the aim of life? We know the aim of life. We have dharma, karma, kama, artha, and moksha. That's the normal aim of life. But this is not. That's a normal. We're told, as good Hindus, in Hindu society, there's 4 legitimate goals of life. Dharma, kama, artha, moksha. right? But the topmost devotee who knows the essence of everything, what's his goal of life, her goal of life? He says, Vani Shruti Chetamsi. They want to speak about God, hear about God, and think about God. That's the goal of life. Vani, Shruti, and Chetasam. Chetana, Chetana, right? Ones who chinta, like contemplate God, right? Those who think the goal of life is to speak, hear, and contemplate. Prakshanam, every moment, all the time, without a break. Nava, but as if ever new, right? Always new, right? Right? Achutasya, yet things about. Want to hear about Achuta, means Vishnu, and speak about the and always. It's even though hearing the same thing, it's ever new. Of course, we have 1,000 volumes of information. We can say no, I will never repeat ourselves. But even repeat the same thing again and again, it's ever new. We repeat the same mantra again and again, hopefully ever new. Right? And then Striya Vrittanam Eva Sadhu Varta. Just like a worldly person or a vulgar person is always thinking about sex. A vulgar person will loves to hear about sex and sex and material life, right? They're ever interested. A devotee always wants to hear about God. Right, because you're that type of person. But you also see King Parikshit, he gets the information, he did some mistake, and he's going to die in 7 days. Now, so what does he immediately do? Who's going to talk to me about God for 7 days? Right? Other people think, oh, I'm going to die. Well, let's go have fun. Right? My bucket list. I'll take the top 2 or 3 at the top. We'll start with those. We won't work our way up. We'll start to work our way down. Right? That's the difference. Right? What are you going to think about? If you only have a few, if you only have a few moments to think, what are you going to think about? If you only have a few more conversations, what are you going to speak about? So he's asking because I'm answering you because, of course, you're the topmost qualified person, and and you've asked a very good question. Right, but only any good question that deals with God is a good question, right? Shrnusva avahita rajam. Listen very carefully, O King. Our Guruji Vishnudevananda Maharaj used to say like that. He says so. At the please, I have no bookish knowledge, he said. He's stark, right? I have no bookish knowledge, but I shall tell you my life, my practical life. Please hear attentively. He used to always say basically the same. Please listen carefully, because he doesn't have knowledge, book knowledge, but he has his own life, personal experience. This is important. Then he'd start. At the age of 19, I took this order, wandered hither and thither. 26, I met my guru. He talked his life like this, right? Be a good one. Please hear attentively. Apiguyam vadami te. Apiguyam vadami he. I'm going to tell you, guyam, a very secret thing, right? So remember, this is I'm telling you an esoteric thing, a hidden. Guyam means secret or hidden, both. Because actually things aren't secret. They're published in, Srimad Bhagavatam, a very popular book. Here it's published by Ramakrishna Mission, published by ISKCON, by Gaudiya Math. So it's not secret, but it's hidden. Or a better way to say it's esoteric. You can read it but not get it. Right? That's the thing, right? But you're asking an esoteric question. Right? So I shall tell you esoteric knowledge. I shall explain something secret. Vadami, I shall elucidate and explain something secret. Right? Bhruyo Srigdhasva Shishaha. I shall explain to a surrendered, a humble, a submissive disciple. I'll because you're a submissive disciple, a surrendered disciple. It says Guravo Guyam Api Uttaha. Then a guru will explain even secret things. Right? If the right disciple comes with the right attitude, with real spiritual hunger, with great humility, right? Even things that are not supposed to be said, that are hidden, that are kept very private, then you give, like for instance, the most secret thing is the mantra, right? That's something you never speak out loud. But if the right person comes to the proper thing, then even that they'll tell you, They'll whisper into you. They'll whisper you that secret also, right? It works this way too. It's because you're a sincere, submissive, or devoted disciple. Right? So those are the main verses. That's a very, to me, it's a nice setup. This is esoteric knowledge. And what's the qualification to hear such knowledge? Right? We may not have perfect qualification to hear or to speak, but we shall give it our best shot. I'll read from beginning. This is Swami Bhajanananda's translation, published Ramakrishna Mission. Sri Shuka said, "You have put the right question, O thou most fortunate and best among the Bhagavatas. The story of the Lord's deeds appears fresh in spite of hearing them after time. For those wise men who consider that the real purpose of the power of speech, hearing, and thought consists of dedicating them to Him, or hearing, speaking, thinking, in his interest in hearing about the deeds of the Lord becomes natural and instinctive. These accounts have an ever-renewing novelty about them, just as stories about sex has for vulgar people. Listen with faith and attention, O King. I am giving you something in spite of it being a great secret. To a beloved disciple, teachers reveal even the most esoteric verities, truth. After having rescued the boys and the calves from death in the mouth of Aghasura, the giant snake, the Lord brought them to the bank of the river and said, "Ah, friends, how charming are the river banks! These sandy regions, besides being useful for our games, are naturally endowed with pure, soft sands. The whole river surface is a blossom of flowers, whose fragrance is attracting the buzzing honeybees and chirping birds, and their sounds mixed with the murmuring music of the river are reverberating with the foliage of thick vegetation around it." So after this incredible event, he said, "Oh, look how beautiful, but hey, let's not run home yet. Look how beautiful the day is. Let's go sit on the sand. Let's go play by the river. Let's have we came here for a picnic eventually, right? It is now late noon and we are very hungry. Let us therefore sit and take our lunch. Let the calves drink water and graze about here." Thereupon the boys made the calves drink their fill and tied them up in regions where there was plenty of grass. Then they took out their food and plates from their slings and sat delightedly with the Lord to lunch, sitting around Krishna in several rows and constantly gazing at his face with eyes wide open. They looked like petals of a lotus arranged round its center. So this image is very beautiful. Krishna's in the center and they're all sitting in rows around him, like petals around a flower. So this is their life is entirely focused upon God. They happen to be lucky that God happens to be literally with them. They ate in plates improvised from flowers, flower petals, tender leaves, fruits, tree bark, and stones, as well as in the ready-made ones taken from their sling. Commenting on the flavor and delicacies of their respective dishes, and laughing and making one another laugh by jokes, they dined with the Lord. Imagine the sight of him, who all the offerings of yajna are made, sitting in boyish glee to take his food amidst his companions, with a flute stuck between his waistcloth and the abdomen, with his blowhorn and staff in the left armpit and the left hand respectively, with balls of curd rice in his right palm, and various condiments between his fingers. He sat in the midst of his friends, cracking jokes and making them laugh, as the celestials looked on, steeped in wonder. Actually, in the beginning, I was going to work on this, but ran out of time. This verse has, I think it's Yajna Brit or something. I forget the word. I don't have it here. It says that actually Vishnu only eats from yajna, right? So he's the one that all yajna. This is the way you feed God. Swaha. You pour it like this, and it goes into his mouth. He's the Lord of yajna. That Lord of yajna is with chutney squeezed through his fingers, and he's eating rice balls, and he's it's like sitting with his friends. It's a very beautiful. That scene is inconceivable because he only eats by yajna. Is this yajna? Right? It's a type of yajna. Right? As the cow-keeping boys were thus engaged in their dinner, oblivious of everything but Krishna. That's a great line. Oblivious of everything but Krishna, even while they're taking their dinner. Eager for the calves, for grass, moved to distant parts of the woodlands. After missing their calves, the boys were filled with apprehension. But Krishna, who is the remover of the fears of all the world, told them, "Friends, continue your meal. I shall go fetch the calves." So saying, Krishna, with a ball of rice still in his hand, went about searching for the calves in the mountain tops, caves, and groves of creepers. Brahma, the lotus-born, had been thoroughly astonished to see the divine play of the liberation of Aghasura. He saw, with his 4 heads, Krishna kill that bird or that snake. Right? He's seen everything, right? Who is desirous of seeing Brahma the Lotus born, who had been thoroughly astonished to see the divine play of the liberation of Aghasura, was desirous of seeing more of the unique powers and greatness of the divine child, incognito. So Brahma, actually, it's sometimes this is like the humbling of Brahma, right? But it's not exactly humbling because Brahma was not trying to do something bad, right? He wanted to see more of the Lord's play. Now, Brahma is also Brahma is also seen as very often as having potentially an ego problem, right? The ego problem is, you have to imagine, we have one head to deal with. He has 4 heads to deal with. He used to have 5, 4 heads to deal with. And there's other Brahmas and other creations that have 10,000 heads. Huge creations. We have a very small, fairly insignificant. Our Brahma only has 4 heads, right? So he's not too egotistical, right? So some would hold that, this is the ego of Brahma. Thinking this little boy, what has he done? How can he do like that? But I have so much power. I can trick him, right? So that could be the motivation. It doesn't directly say like that, but the commentaries have, and we can see, if we were to put it, we also think, like we're smart, we understand God's power, but we can devise a plan to test it. See if he's really God, something like that, right? And in the symbolism of the demons representing different anarthas, Brahma is not a demon, right? He can't be called a demon, right? But this scene also represents an anartha. It represents a bit of a, I hate to say, but modern scientific inquiry, a certain type of thing, a certain intellectual, academic. If we were to use them, that doesn't make sense. These words wouldn't have been used back then. But we can understand him through philosophy, through experiments. We can make an experiment to understand him, right? Something like that. I shall do something. I shall make an experiment. We will do this and see what happens. Close the gap. Yes, God in the gap idea, right? So it's an interesting that. So it's not wrong to give this interpretation, although the text simply says that I'm going to see, like he's done so many wonderful things. I want to see what else he will do. Let's see. Let's enter the Leela a little bit and try something, right? Like that. He therefore spirited away and hid all the calves that Krishna was in search for. He stole all those little calves and hid them away. By the time Krishna returned to his companions, unsuccessful in his attempt to find the calves, he discovered that the boys too had disappeared. So Brahma had stolen the calves, and he stole the cowherd boys. Right? Let's see what happens. Right? See what Krishna will do. Right? Either because he was trying to fool Krishna, or he was trying to test Krishna, or he was trying to show his superiority to Krishna. That's a possible interpretation. Or he was trying to understand Krishna. Right? All these are possible ways of interpreting. Or he's just he's also part of the play, part of the Leela of this. Right? He's a character in the Leela, so he's playing his part. So he stole the calves and he stole the and we see on April Fools was just somebody moved something and it's like like Usha's very good. We walk in, we make something, we put it on the counter, turn around, and we come back and it's gone. It's like, oh. So rather than giving her the satisfaction, we just go and look around, pretend like nothing happened, So it's kind of like I kind of visualize that type of thing. Somebody playing a practical joke, Brahma steals the cows and he goes to look for the cows and he comes back to check the boys and the boys are also gone. So he's confused, or he's confused, right? Not finding the cowherd boys, also on his return to the riverbank, Krishna moved about the woods everywhere, seeking both of them, the cows and the boys. Searching everywhere, he could find neither the boys nor the calves. Presently, it dawned on him that who is all knowing, that the whole affair was the mischification. Is that a word? That's what it says. Machination. What does that mean?
Machination, is that the word?
Yeah. The mischief of. I like
in this
mischief.
case, yeah,
Mischification. I just made up a better word. It may not be a word, but it's better than this word because I know it.
Orchestration.
Huh? Orchestration. No, this has all been organized, manufactured, organized by Brahma. He knew immediately what happened. Usha did it. Usha stole my blanket. I knew it. Julie Usha's, right? Brahma stole. So Krishna, in order to give joy to all the parties concerned, so rather than like, I shall chastise Brahma and get the boys back, right? He takes it as like, this is something. From this, something good can happen, right? This is something. Let's do something good. Let's make everyone happy by this event, right? In order to give joy to all the parties concerned, the mothers of the cowherd boys, the cows are he stole the boys and the calves, because the boys take the calves out and the grown men and women take the cows out, right? So in order to please the mothers and the cows, the mothers of the boys and the mothers of the calves, and also Brahma, and to please Brahma, to give blessing to Brahma also, right? He assumed the forms of both the boys and the calves. He became all the calves and became all the boys. In some of the stories, it says actually Brahma put them in a cave, right? He put them in some mystic cave or some other realm or who knows where. But usually it's when the story is fleshed out and in art, he puts them in some cave and he puts them asleep in a cave, right? And so no problem. So he expands himself as all the calves and he expands himself out of all the little boys. To him who's a maker and master of all, this is but a trifle. Right, he creates the entire universe. Doing this is nothing, but there's a little hint here because he creates the entire universe. He didn't create new boys. He became the boys. He didn't make new cows. That's easy enough, right? Right. He created he made universe. He can make a cow. He became the cows. There's a little hint here. It's like what this world is, what people are. Right? How does he become the world? How does he make the world? He himself becomes this world. Right. Whatever number of small boys and cows there were, whatever organs and limbs they were endowed with, whatever equipment they had like staff, cow horns, flutes, vessels, and slings, whatever ornaments and clothes they were wearing, whatever playthings they possessed, whatever distinctive features they had, like traits of character, virtue, name, fame, form, age, and the like, all these, that immortal one became. He became exactly copies of each one of them. Right? As a literal illustration of the great truth that all is Vishnu. So he actually makes a quote, Sarvam Vishnu Mayam. Everything is filled only with Vishnu. And so he's doing a few things. He's doing this to please Brahma in a weird way, right? Either humble Brahma or please Brahma, bring good to Brahma, to bring good to the to the moms and to the cows, right? But also to prove the scriptures true. Right? He's illustrating. So we read in the scriptures. That's a verse in the scriptures. Actually, it says, "Sarvam Vishnu Mayam Jagat." Even goes further. Right? This whole world is nothing but everything in this world. The whole world itself is nothing but Vishnu. Right? That's the scripture of it. Shankaracharya he quotes this line in his Viveka Chudamani. It's quoted in commentaries in the Gita and that Vasudeva Sarvamitihi, the mantra that everything is Vasudeva. This line is brought. I think it's in Vishnu Sahasranam. It appears I'm not super fresh. I didn't have time to look it up so much, but Sarvam Vishnu Mayam or Sarvam Vishnu. Here it simply says Sarvam Vishnu Mayam. The full verse in many places Sarvam Vishnu Mayam Jagat. So it's not just he's showing. So the point he's trying to show that everything in the whole universe is filled only with Vishnu. In order to demonstrate that truth, he's become the cows and the cowherd boys, right? So he's showing how it's done, right? This is a story. So this is the esoteric part of the esoteric story. This is a very deep point, right? That he's showing how he's become everything, how he fills everything, how he's the essence of everything, how everything is actually. Even the differences, even like these different boys, they have different karmas, different character traits, different tendencies, different body types. Right? It's not like the soul is. We have our karmas, but the soul is one. No, it's like even every distinct feature, good, bad, good character, bad character. Because these are all little boys, the playmates of Krishna, no bad character, but every detail every person, every character trait, all the paraphernalia, the things, the slings, the wrist rockets, the whole everything is all the playthings. Everything is he's become everything. In order to illustrate the literal illustration of the Vedic truth, Sarvam, Sarva, Vishnu Mayam, or Sarva Vishnu Mayan Jagat. So actually, this is also very beautiful because it uses this term. It uses like Swayam Atma, Swatma, Mam Atma. This next verse uses lots of. He's saying the self. Himself became the self, who's the self of all, became the self of everything, although never always himself. And there's lots of these. How to understand it? I'll just read the translation, but it's one of those crazy verses. Krishna himself, so Krishna is himself the calves. So Krishna, little boy playing with his flute and probably still his hand sticky with the yogurt from the yogurt ball, right? Krishna himself, Krishna as the calves, himself the cowherd boys directing the calves, himself enacting various plays, and himself the toys and the sports and the sport materials. Krishna, the soul of all beings, entered the cowherd sentiment. So he went back home, himself, right? The boys, the cows. He was so it's like Brahmarpanam, Brahmahavir, Brahmagno. The Brahman is the offering, Brahman is the fire, Brahman is the ghee, Brahman is the act of offering. It's like it's that type of realization. This is a scene, right? And actually, it's not connected to this verse because it's remember, he is yajna, right? He's a yajna. He's the offering into the fire. He's the person offering into the fire. Something like this can be also fleshed out. Himself, Krishna himself the calves, himself the cowherd boys directing the calves, himself enacting various plays, and himself the toys and sport materials. Krishna, the soul of all beings. So he's not just the soul of the calves, that little bit. He's the soul of all beings. That's the Swayam Atma. Krishna himself, the soul of all beings, entered the cowherd sediments. O king, separating each one's calves, driving them into the respective cowsheds, Krishna, who had become each and every one of the boys and the calves, entered their respective houses in the very likeness of each boy. Their mothers, hearing the sound of the flutes, got up hurriedly to receive them. On arrival, they embraced with both arms and suckled ecstatically the Para Brahman in the shape of their boys. Para Brahman, Supreme Brahman, is the big statement, in the shape of their boys. Now, in this story, they literally were Krishna, right? And we can take it like, but everyone's literally Krishna in a slightly different way, right? But these were literally Krishna. There's a difference between Krishna and Krishna, right? Everything is Brahman, but some things are directly. We're still giving that distinction. It's not meant to be lost hold of. Otherwise, it becomes like the weaver, misunderstanding everything and ruining their spiritual life. Right? We have to understand properly, carefully.
And then the parents had that spiritual life.
Yeah, no, and so, but also anyway, we'll continue. They suckled the very and of course, this story can also be we've done this a few times. Take a giant step back. This is a story about some kids, right? And the natural happenings that happened in villages, and even now the same thing. There's an accident and something collapses, and the kids go out and they get in some danger and they come back and oh my God, what happened to our? These are also in one sense, not claiming this, but this is also regular life. Right? To every child is divine if seen properly. Every child is Para Brahman if seen properly. Everything is magical and mystical and mysterious. Right? Everything, there is ghosts and demons and spirits and gods behind everything. If we have that mental mindset, right? But this story, literally, it's the case also, not just in a general way. The daily routine finished, the Lord, in the guise of so many boys, was in the evening rubbed, bathed, anointed with cosmetics, decked in silk and with jewels, sanctified with marks, this is tilak, fed sumptuously and fondled by respective mothers of the boys. So each mother was taking care of the boy, but it was Krishna this time, not the boys, right? And in return, regaled them all separately by his charming gestures, and after a couple of hours retired to bed. The cows, returning from pasture, rushed to the cowshed and lowing to summon their respective calves, began to lick the young ones again and again, and fed them with their milk that was overflowing from their udders. The cows and the mothers continued to move towards the multiform Krishna, continue to have towards the multiform Krishna as calves and boys, the same material attitude that they used to have towards their calves and sons. The only difference was that the intensity of their affection was greater than before. They loved their children even more. The cows loved their calves even more. Yeah. And Krishna, in the form of their young ones, had the same affection towards their mothers as before, the only difference being that he was not prompted by Maya through the sense of possession. A child loves his mother because of Maya. Right? A mother even loves its child. It's the purest form of love between mother and child, but not 10% pure. We can see as we unpack it, and nowadays it's like it's go to a psychiatrist, and as soon as they realize it's your mom's fault, then you're cured. It's like there's a very complicated thing. Right? It's a complicated relationship, right? But here it says he responded, but completely not because they were the source of their food, and not because of their instinctual training and their patterns of behavior and positive reinforcement for food. There's a whole thing that we can see how we develop our relationship with the world. It was completely pure, completely real. In the case of the Gopas, the creeper of their affection for their children remained ever green and limitlessly growing, as it was based on Krishna, the infinite being. Thus Krishna spent 1 year in the house of the Gopas and their children, and in the cowshed as the calves, assuming the forms of both and tending himself as calves by himself as a cowherd boy. So he was the cowherd boys who were tending the calves. Right? He's playing both. Once when only 5 or 6 days were left to complete 1 year of this divine drama, Krishna, along with Rama, Balaram, went to the forest with the calves. The cows, which were grazing at the top of Govardhan mountain, saw the calves at a long distance moving about near Vraj. Seeing they forgot themselves out of love for the calves, and overcoming with impediments posed by their tending cowherders, and natural obstacles, ran towards them with the gait and speed of horses, their heads turned to the hump, tails raised, and udders shedding milk. So fast did they gallop that they looked as if they had only 2 legs. Hurtling down the valley towards the valley, these cows, though they had other calves, began to lick these calves with such excitement that it made one think that they were going to eat them up, and began to feed them with milk overflowing from their udders. This is a mysterious scene. So this is a little before that the year was ended. Krishna and Balaram were out, and they see the cow. They're tending little older cows now. The men were tending older cows, and seeing these calves, they run. But the thing, cows, they have a thing. Once they get new calves, in that year they've given new calves, right? So that milk is not for the old calves anymore. The older calves, the affection they come in, but they're running as if their calves are still. So this is the 2 sets of calves are coming, experiencing something mysterious. So something's not, it doesn't make sense. That's the point. The cowherds tending them were discomforted and irritated, not being able to control these cows. With great difficulty, they came hurrying through intricate hill tracks to the valley where we met the calves and their own sons. Seeing their sons, the irritated mood of the Gopas took to wings, and great was their joy when, overcome with affection for the boys, they took them in their arms, embraced them, and smote the crown of their heads. Thus, having attained to the summit of satisfaction by embracing the boys, the elderly Gopas, feeling like youth, departed with their eyes overflowing with tears. Now Balaram is asking some questions about this. Surprised at the growth of affection at the women of Raj towards infants, for these grown-up boys who had been weaned. So a year has passed. They're not 5 anymore. They're 6. Krishna is now 6. Right? These calves are no longer little things. They're now a year older. Why are their parents still have that affection? They still treat them as if they're 5. I mean, there's an unusual thing. This is something Something's different. He's asking. Balaram is asking, what's going on here? What a wonder. Ram began to think about the cause. What a wonder, he thought. The kind of love which the inhabitants of Raj used to have towards Krishna, the soul of all, they all now found to have towards the children in Vraja. What is the source of this magical spell? What put their parents like this? Is it a human or celestial or asuric? And is it a god? Is it human or is it a demon? What has caused this magic that make their parents act this way? Right? It must certainly be that of my master, Krishna. Or else it could not have affected me also. Right? How could I have been deluded by this? Because he wasn't actually, as per the story, he's not mentioned in this lila. Right? He may have gone. There's something. It was his. There's some commentary that says, "Oh, it was his birthday, and his birthday he had to go home to do some abhishekam, something like that." So he missed. He came back. He was just so happy to meet all his. Not knowing anything had happened, but now he's thinking something seems to be off. Must be Krishna's action. Cognating in this manner, Balaram was able, with his eyes of knowledge, to recognize all of them as expressions of Krishna. Seeing this, all the cows, they're Krishna. And all the boys, they're Krishna. The Satchitananda, he uses that word. They found them all Satchitananda. So this is very deep. Imagine, we have some philosophical idea, how God has become everything. God has become this world. God has either created the world, but out of what? Out of himself, right? But imagine if we we think that, but nothing much happens. It's nice. It's a theoretical. It's potential. It's a divine. It's a truth. So it's good to think this way, right? But it's also dangerous to think this way because then we can get lost. It's not a real. But if we actually saw it, Balaram thinking it immediately saw it, right? If we knew all of a sudden, you saw these, you're not Kalyani. You're Krishna. Well, imagine if we saw. Look at the way Sri Ramakrishna. We hear stories where Sri Ramakrishna was tempted during his youth. He thought, brahmacharis made him go crazy. So they hired a prostitute to tempt him. Right? Seeing her, he sees the Divine Mother and goes into ecstasy, body wrenches tears. Right? Other people see a prostitute. He sees Kali, the Divine Mother. He sees a boy. He doesn't see a boy, he sees Krishna. Right? Everything was, if the sea was proper eyes, right? Imagine this is Balaram, this is a little glimpse of the truth. What it is actually see, not just to think the truth and parrot speak some Advaitic philosophy, undigested Advaitic philosophy. This is to actually see what's true. He said, "These boys are not parts of devas, nor these cows of rishis, as was supposed before. Thou alone shining as all these different entities. Thou art alone shining at all these different entities. You are become everything. The Vedas too declare that thou art the manifold." Right? It says in the Vedas, "I am one, let me become many." Right? Brahman himself says, "I become everything." So he said the Vedas also say this truth. What I'm seeing is that's another test. You should test what you're experienced by the scriptures. Right? He has an experience. The Vedas also say that. Right? So thou alone should clarify this mystery. Tackled thus, the Lord explained the whole affair to him in brief. 1 year after, with according to his Brahma's calculation, the time is only a truti, a moment. Brahma came back to the scene, only to see the ever-full Krishna with his retinue of boys and calves still playing there, as he was doing 1 year ago. So actually, this happened in 1 year, right? But we know, not obvious, but the different realms and lokas, they have a different time. Time moves at a different speed. You see, like a June bug. Soon we'll have June bugs whacking into our head, very annoying. Right? But they're born, right? They born, grow up, fall in love, get married, have children, get old, and die in 24 hours. Right? That's their life. That's their manifest life cycle. Right? So that 24 hours is to them 100 years. Right? We do our 100 years in 80 years sometimes, or something. Very rarely 100 years, 100 years. Right, and there's bacteria that their whole life cycle is a few seconds, right? But there's plant trees. There's trees that last 1,000 years. Their life cycle is very different. Their time is different, right? Brahma is the oldest creature. He's the oldest person in creation, right? He outlawed, so so it says that his moment is 1 year. Or to speak of 100 years, a day of Brahma there's so many yugas. The life of Brahma is so many. We've discussed those things in the Bhagavatam. These dates, these time limits are given, but so it actually Brahma just started to say, "Oh, I'll steal the boys and see what happens." And then when he comes back, him coming back was 1 year, just a second. A moment was 1 year. There's that some movie, the guy in space, and it also goes into that recently. Interstellar, yeah, where he spends 20 minutes on a planet to get something, and it's like 20 years have passed back at the ship, right? That type of relative type of timing could be considered like this. 1 year after, which according to Brahma's calculation of time is only a tritiya moment, Brahma came back to the scene only to see the ever full Krishna with his retinue and boys and calves still plain as he was done 1 year ago. Right, he just took the boys and the cows and he turned around and the boys and cows are still there. This is Balaam then thought within himself, all the boys and calves of Raja are even now sleeping in my magical bed. They're in the cave. They're sleeping in Maya. I've deluded them. They're asleep. Wherefrom have these come all these calves and boys who continue to be with Krishna, grazing and playing here for the past 1 year? Thinking deeply over the problem of these two sets of boys and calves, Brahma was not able to arrive at any conclusion as to which one was genuine and which one was the pseudo set. Which one's the real cows? Which one's the real... he began to think. Thus, the attempt of Brahma to confuse Vishnu, who is himself undiluted by any false knowledge, but who infatuates the world by his Maya, ended in his own confusion and discomformature. Actually, in Sanskrit, there's also very... Did I do this? No, I didn't do... Maybe I did. This is very... No, I did from next few. This is a very beautiful verse. He, right, tried to put into Maya, or Vimoha or something like that. I think it's like delusion. I think he uses Maya and Vimoha in this word, I think. He tried to put in delusion Krishna, right, who's the master of all Maya, who puts everybody into Maya. And in so trying to do so, he became into Maya. Right. This is why this verse is sometimes interpreted to be like that intellectual, philosophical inquiry. Jaiman, namaskar. Please come. And if you can sit, is it okay on the floor, or there's a bench behind if you go around. Jaima, come over here if you like, or on the bench. Or you okay? Okay. What time is it now? 6:08. So this is why this story is interpreted to be like that I can understand, I can test, I can make an experiment. Trying to make an experiment on Krishna, he becomes deluded, right? Because, and actually many times in Bhagavatam we read the type of thing, is that a wave cannot know the ocean. Impossible. A creature cannot know the creator. Right? It's like that's not the way it works. The creator knows the creature. The whole knows the part. The ocean knows the wave, right? Unless the ocean reveals itself, right? So you can't do by some intellectual experiment, by some scientific process, or by that type of investigation. It's not. You just get more and more confused. Impossible. Need more ghee? I have more. Somewhere. You need more? Behind there's. It may be cold. I don't know. Oh, it's still liquidy enough. Oh. So trying to trick Krishna, trying to make who puts everyone in Maya, who's never in Maya, himself, the so doing only confused him. That's the thing about this type of approach, trying to understand God by this method, you don't understand, right? But actually, he did understand. That's the thing. There is his sincerity. You'll see he does reveal. As a darkness caused by dew in a naturally dark night, and the light shed by a glowworm in the broad daylight, the magical powers displayed against him, who is the source of the world magic, can only be ineffective. It only destroys the power of the person who does so. So this is a complicated thing, but it's like if you try to look at the sun using a glowworm, here's we have our lighter or our phone, very powerful iPhone, the flashlight app. Like I'm gonna see the sun this way. right? In the process, it becomes silly, right? So it's not that it's sinful; it's just stupid, right? That's the thing. This method is not the right method, right? The sun reveals. You can find your sun, your phone from the light of the sun. You're not going to reveal the sun, and it just makes when the sun comes up, the sun loses its meaning, right? It loses its power, right? As Brahma was looking on in this confused state of mind, he found all the calves as well as the cowherd boys with their equipment of staff, horn, etc., suddenly turned into forms of blue complexion, resembling heavy rain clouds, and dressed in yellow silk. So it's interesting. Usually this Brahma is accused of, oh, this is a scientific investigation, this is egotistical, trying to understand it. But it worked, actually, right? He began to see all the forms as Krishna in multiple arms, right? Because he still has some sincere searching, right? It didn't work the way he thought. His experiment didn't exactly work out. But even a failed experiment can reveal a lot, right? Humbles one, and that changes consciousness considerably. He found them all he saw all the boys and all the cows. Now it was 4 arms, like Vishnu. Dark blue body, yellow, this color cloth, right? This color body is your shirt, with 4 arms. Nobody here has 4 arms. Actually, you do. But only Brahma we can't see, right? That's the point of the story. Like, oh, that's good. He did this behind you. This is pretty good. Very, very good, right? He found all of them 4-armed, holding in those arms conch, disc, mace, and lotus, wearing diadem, earrings, necklaces, and floral wreath, and having on their bodies Shivatsa mark. These are the Shivatsa mark means this has to be Vishnu. Only Vishnu has this mark, right? Armlets embraced the study with gems. Girdled, anklets, and rings. They were having on them holy tulsi garlands, extending from head to foot, freshly offered by great devotees. Their faces were remarkable by the sidelong glances of their eyes, having red tinged, and their smile resembling the moon. The former symbolic of Rajas, granting desires in the hearts of devotees, and the latter symbolic of Sattva, which preserves their spiritual interests. All embodied beings, from himself, Lord Brahma himself, down to the inanimate objects, were adoring them separately in different ways, with dance, song, and various ingredients of worship. And this gets kind of crazy, right? He sees this, and what is he seeing? He's seeing all living beings, including him, worshiping these different forms of God, right? So you can imagine, you can see the entire world's worship is going on right here, if we had our eyes to see, right? They were surrounded by 8 yoke. They were each of these forms, these little cows and all these little boys who are actually Krishna, who are actually Vishnu. Sarva Vishnu Mayam Jagat. Everything is embodied, filled with Vishnu. They all had all the qualities. They were surrounded by the 8 yogic powers: anima, lagima, becoming small, becoming all the psychic powers, right? By Maya and other Shaktis, by the 24 categories. This is the 24 cosmic principles of Sankhya. They were being adored in an embodied state by Kala, time, Swabhava, nature, Samskaras, tendencies, Kama, desire, Karma, action, whose effulgence was engulfed by that of the Vishnu forms. They were seen as the embodiments of truth, consciousness, bliss, Satchitananda, and as inexhaustible repositories of countless auspicious qualities, whose extent cannot be glimpsed even through the Upanishads. Brahma saw them all simultaneously as Parabrahma. He saw them all as the Supreme Brahman. This is a big realization. By whose light all the creation is manifested. Astonished by this experience, Brahma turned his gaze away. He couldn't look. All his 11 senses became completely stilled in the presence of the divine majesty he witnessed, and he stood silent like a statue. Besides the main deity of Raj. Number 757, I think I worked on. Itresha, Isha, Atarke, Nija, Mahimna. What do you see? That Lord, he's given the name the Lord of Saraswati. So Lord Brahma thought Now this is this is what the experiment is supposed to lead. Actually, Swami sitting here, Swami, and also in some letters, Swami Paramananda, our Gurubai, our senior Gurubai, he's made many times statement that the purpose of philosophy, the purpose of scientific inquiry, the purpose of academic research, that logical, analytical, philosophical inquiry is not to reveal truth. It can't reveal, not to reveal truth. It's to correct mistakes, correct falsehood, remove falsehood. That the truth can, the truth reveals itself. It's simply there, right? It's not shown by the flashlight doesn't find the sun, but trying to find the sun with the flashlight may see, oh, the sun, right? It removes, once you realize the flashlight's not going to do it, then you may look for the actual sun. So he had this is his realization. Thinking this, he's realized, what is he? He says he's atarkya nija mahimani swa prakapmite pramitite. Sorry, this is not very tiny and I can't read it. He says first thing he said, he is beyond logic. Right. So the first thing is trying to make an experiment, but he's beyond all logic, because his glory, his mahima is he has infinite glory. So how can we understand about something that's infinitely glorious, right? Right. And he's swa pramita. He's bliss itself, right? You know, he say he's himself blissful, but that's actually, I don't think it can't be meant, because that's something logically reasonable. He's bliss. We've talked about in our Kali Sasana classes, Ma isn't happy, she's happiness. She's not loving, she's love. She's a thing itself, right? So he's bliss itself, not blissful, right? He's bliss in itself, you could say. He's paratra ajata, he's beyond prakriti. He's beyond material nature, beyond categories, right? He's and in the Vedas, he's Mukha, Brahma, in he's indicated in the negative way in the Vedas. This isn't the Upanishads. For instance, not neti, not this, right? Anything we say about him isn't him, right? So actually, sometimes we think, oh, if we remove everything, it can be that he's not this, and what's left over is him. That's not the way it works, actually, right? But nothing can be said about him. Find a thing nothing can be said about. Don't think what's left after you've said a lot of things. There's a difference. You have to find the one, that he's indicated by negatives in the Vedas, right? Then he asks, how am I seeing him in all these forms? That's a great question. I'm seeing the one being, right, in all these forms. Then Krishna, the original Krishna in that whole batch, the one that's the original Krishna, right, removed his own supreme Maya. His Maya, which is supreme, not Brahma's Maya, right? He let himself be seen, right? He understood everything at once. He understood what happened, right? 57, 58. Then Brahma came back to his normal consciousness, like a dead man revived. Rubbing his eyes, he looked out and saw the whole universe and himself distinct from it. He looked around immediately and saw before him the Vrindavan with its magnificent vegetation and graced by the presence of Krishna therein. Because of his presence, men and animals that are naturally antagonistic to one another lived there peacefully, and evil passions like greed and anger fled from the hearts of men. So then he saw the world as it is, right, as before, right, with full understanding. But he saw Krishna in the middle, and there he saw the non-dual Brahman, immeasurable consciousness, in the assumed form of the cowherd boy, going about in search of his calves and companions with a ball of rice and condiments in his hand. He saw Krishna, he saw the boy, but he saw what it really was. He saw everything as before, but now he saw it was that non-dual Brahman manifest as everything. Right. That's the problem. If people start saying, "Oh, I've seen Brahman, I perceive Brahman," it's impossible. Right. The non-dual can't be perceived. There's no second thing to perceive it, but it can be perceived through a realization that the one has become everything. Thereupon Brahma got down from his vehicle in haste and fell down in prostration before Krishna, stretching his body like a staff of gold at his feet, doing obeisance and touching his feet with his 4 diademed heads. his jeweled heads. He washed those feet with the tears of joy that were welling from his eyes. So much has been made about his foreheads, right? So he bowed his foreheads, right? His forehead, his foreheads, his four foreheaads. You can say it like that, because this is, we have only one head, right? It should be easier. It should be easy to bow. With foreheads, it's harder. Ego comes. And washed his feet with joys from his 16 eyes. No. 8 eyes. I was a religious studies major, not a math major. So I mean, very rarely has math been required in this particular job, but today it's one of those moments where I can't even multiply 2 eyes times 4. Maybe I should have paid attention. Remembering again and again the divine majesties of Krishna that he had witnessed earlier, he got up and prostrated again and again at his feet. Then he stood up slowly, composed himself, wiped his eyes moistened by his tears, took a look at Krishna, and with a head bent down and palms joined in humble salutation, began to recite a hymn in his praise, his voice and body trembling with high emotion. That hymn we'll read in 2 weeks. It's a very beautiful. Well, it may take some time. That is a very, we've read so many of these hymns, and the Guyakas have said these hymns, and the gods to Krishna in the womb of Yashoda, of Devaki, these hymns. You are the one who contemplated by yogis. You are beyond Purusha and Prakriti. You are Purusha and Prakriti. You are acting as, these type of. But this is the essence. This is the point of the Bhagavatam. These hymns reveal so much. And I sometimes, many years ago when we first started to speak on Devi Bhagavatam, it's often like somebody will ask, like Parikshit asked a question to Shukadev. Shukadev answered. The sages and Namisanya forest asked Sutta. Sutta answered. In the stories again, Balaramas asked, Krishna answers. Right. All these things. It's a very interesting play that's going on. There's the question as we started the whole thing is that your question is sadhu. What is it? Sadhu Pishta or something like that. You've asked a spiritual question, right? The question indicates that you are Mahabhagavat. Bhagavat Uttama is used, right? Therefore you're a great devotee. Because your question reveals the level of your understanding, your realization. The answer is a revelation, right? Either philosophical, you ask a question, I give an answer. And then according to what you understood, you ask the next question, and I give another answer, right? Or it's a deeper thing. These are visions and big internal meditation experience. But the next question reveals somebody's realization. Or praise, hymns of praise reveal revelations. Realizations. They reveal what has been realized, what they've understood. Right? Even Sri Ramakrishna would ask, yesterday you read, or a couple of days ago, he asked somebody, so, what do you think of me? Right? It's like, what do you mean, what do you think of me? And he'd ask that. And they said something, and he'd smile. Oh, okay, that's good. And it's like he's testing according to what people have understood. Then he'll know where they are. What have you understood of this? So sometimes you can ask you, what have you understood? But sometimes the next question will reveal what you've understood. Or praise the fullness of his realization, Brahma's major realization. So it's interesting. Brahma is often accused in this, as we mentioned in the story, as being egotistical and pride, but actually it's a beautiful. And Krishna, he responded immediately. He says, I want to do good to everybody, including Brahma. We'll illuminate, we'll enlighten Brahma, right, in this story. But a simple thing, another thing can be also said, is historically, if we have to be careful because this is what the story is told to say, not to overly analyze an academic approach it too academically, but still I can't help approach slightly academically, right? And that is that even the place as the history comes, this also shows a move. Brahma and Indra, the next story doesn't do very good either, right? He does even worse, right? And we're trying to drown everybody, and the Garbhadan Leela happens, right? It's like the humbling of Kaliya, the serpent. Right, these aren't just little demons that are being killed. These are these are the deities of ages. These are the deities worshipped in the Vedas, revealed in the Vedas, supreme deities in the Vedas. This also signals a shift, both in the devotional life of people, and that a new, rather than this worship of yajna to deities to get rain and that type of thing, this is more the Lord of the heart, the Lord within everything. It's a shift of that, but also historically a shift where the worship of Krishna replaced the worship of Indra, they replaced the worship of Nagas, replaced the worship of Brahma, right? And the story is, oh, and then Indra is humbled, oh yes, I thought I was God, but now I realize you're God. Right, they could also share. I'm not trying to reduce the stories like that, but they also, I mean, it actually fits the time when Indra worship was being changed to Vasudeva Krishna worship, right? And then you have the story where Indra gets humbled, right? And where Naga worship is being replaced by a new set of deities or understanding, right? That's something to that also. We don't overplay that, right? But it's an interesting historical shift, right? But even deeper, I think, a spiritual historical shift of looking at not only a love for this new deity, this new idea of God, right? But this new idea of God is not just Krishna, who the lover and the cowherd boy and the speaker of the Gita eventually, and like this, but he's the self of all beings. He's become everything. It's a very the deities and the yajnas, these things are reinterpreted to the one behind everything. The real yajna is seeing the one behind everything, right? But then the great mystery, that one behind everything also incarnates, also plays, also is attainable and conceivable. The inconceivable, we talked about this a lot, the inconceivable is conceivable through bhakti. The one that yogis struggle for millions of years to contemplate is holding rice ball in his hand, right, and chasing the cows for his boyfriends, right? So it becomes very mysterious. So many layers and layers and layers of mystery in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So we thank you for your kind attention. Are there any questions or comments? What time is it now?
6:28.
We have 2 minutes for questions and comments. Anything? Next week we'll continue our Kali Sasrama. We gave a hint with Ma's hair. It's one of those things we'll talk about. Muktakeshi and Shukeshi, I think, and some other beautiful lines. And the following week we'll start the prayers of Lord Brahma. That will probably take 2-3 weeks, I think. The prayers of Brahma, they're dense and philosophical, and so we'll try to translate those ourselves. Today is Pradosha. It's a very holy day. It's on the 13th day of the lunar cycle. Very sacred to Shiva. And the most important time of Pradosha is sunset, which is roughly now. I think sunset now is around 7, which is now 6:30. The period of time, it's called Pradosha Kala, very auspicious time. And it says that on this time, on this day, Lord Shiva puts Devi on his own throne and dances in front of her. Right? So this is a very auspicious time. And so yogis who are connoisseurs of auspicious moments, right? Just like children who want to know, if you want to get something from mom and dad, you approach them when they're in really good mood. Not right? Or if you want to approach your dad, your boss for a raise or a promotion, you get them when they're in a really good mood. Right? They just made a big deal and everything is great, like that. So people on this time, it's a very auspicious time to pray to Lord Shiva. And so I think, and usually when we're not having big public things like today, or it's like that, we often do yajnas and things like that at this time. And so we have a yajna here. So maybe we can chant Mahamrityunjaya 11 times for any of those who are sick or suffering, and any special needs like that. We'll chant. And, usually we do 108, but we'll just do 11 times. You want to offer ghee? That'd be nice. Om Garanantva Ganapati Gummavamahe Kavim Gavina Upavasravastamam Jeshtarajam Brahmanam Brahmanaspatana Shunmanutabi Siddhasaranam Om Shri Manmahaganapataye Namaha Om Gam Ganeshaya Swaha Idam Mahaganapataye Idanamama Om Ham Jum Sasa Jum Om Om Trambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanan Mrityor Mukshiyama Amritaat Swaha. Om Trambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanan Mrityor Mukshiyama Amritaat Swaha. Om Trambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanan Mrityor Mukshiyama Amritaat Swaha. Om Trambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanan Mrityor Mukshiyama Amritaat Swaha. Om Trambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanan Mrityor Mukshiyama Amritaat Swaha. Om Trambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanan Mrityor Mukshiyama Amritaat Swaha. Om Trambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanan Mrityor Mukshiyama Amritaat Swaha. Om Trambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanan Mrityor Mukshiyama Amritaat Swaha. Om Trambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanan Mrityor Mukshiyama Amritaat Swaha. Om Trambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanan Mrityor Mukshiyama Amritaat Swaha. Om Trambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanan Mrityor Mukshiyama Amritaat Swaha. Mrityunjaya Shivaya Ida Namah. Om Aim Shrim Hrim Saraswati Devye Namaha. Sarvajnani Sirim Kuru Kuru Swaha. Om Shrim Hrim Shrim Kamale Kamalale Prasira Prasira Shrim Hrim Shrim Mahalakshmi Swaha. Om Durge Durge Rakshini Swaha Hrim Durgaye Swaha. Om Kring 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 Hung Hung Kring Kring Dakshini Kalike Kring 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 Hung Hung Kring Kring Swaha. Om Hung Shang Yamangang Krog Mahakala Bhairava Sarvanganasha Nasha Kring Shring Hung Pat Swaha. Idamagravaya Shivaya Namaha. Om Sarvebhyo Devebhyo Idanamama. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. If you want, there's some samagree. If you have your own prayers, you can offer a pinch into the fire. Auspicious day. And we'll go inside for the next. It should say like post or something.